The massive conference hall on Nexus 7 station buzzed with alien voices speaking in dozens of languages. Commander Jin Ho adjusted his Earth Defense Force uniform and looked across the sea of delegates. Representatives from 43 different species filled the curved rows of seats. Some had scales that glowed in the dim light. Others had multiple arms or eyes that moved independently. All of them had one thing in common. They thought humans were weak. Jin Ho stepped up to the holographic display platform at the center of the hall. The conversations died down as delegates turned their attention to him. He was the first human ever invited to present at the Galactic Military Symposium. Earth had only joined the galactic community 5 years ago. Most species still saw humans as newcomers who knew nothing about real warfare. Honored delegates, Jin Ho began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation devices. I am here today to share Earth's new military doctrine with you. A low rumble of amusement rippled through the audience. Jin Ho ignored it and activated his presentation. Three-dimensional images appeared in the air above him. They showed human soldiers moving through urban environments. The soldiers carried what looked like primitive projectile weapons instead of energy rifles. Admiral Kree Voss sat in the front row. He was 8 feet tall with dark blue skin and 4 arms. His species, the Valorians, had been fighting galactic wars for over 3,000 years. Voss had personally commanded fleets in 17 major conflicts. He looked at the human presentation, with barely hidden contempt. As you can see, Jin Ho continued, our doctrine emphasizes close-quarters combat techniques. We focus on urban warfare, guerrilla tactics, and rapid adaptation to changing battlefield conditions. The hologram showed human soldiers engaging enemies in tight spaces. They moved from building to building using cover and concealment. Some carried explosive devices. Others used what appeared to be sharpened metal weapons alongside their firearms. Voss leaned forward in his seat. Commander Jin Ho, he said, his voice booming through the hall. Are you seriously suggesting that these primitive tactics have value in modern galactic warfare? Jin Ho nodded. Yes, Admiral Voss. Our field testing has shown remarkable effectiveness. Rates. Field testing, Voss repeated with a laugh. Against what enemies? Pirates and outdated ships? Smugglers with light weapons? Other delegates began to chuckle. The Hegemony Coalition representative, General Tal Nex, shook his massive head. His species believed that overwhelming orbital bombardment could solve any military problem. The idea of soldiers fighting with knives seemed absurd to him. Jin Ho pressed on. Our doctrine incorporates lessons learned from extensive consultation with field specialists. We have developed techniques for operating in environments where energy weapons are less effective, urban combat, underground facilities, and areas with heavy electromagnetic interference. Consultation with field specialists, Voss said mockingly. You mean the handful of humans who have engaged in minor skirmishes with criminals and raiders. How exactly does that qualify as military expertise? The laughter grew louder. Even species that normally remained neutral seemed amused by the human presentation. Earth's military experience was limited compared to civilizations that had been fighting wars across the galaxy for millennia. In the back of the hall, Dr. Hana Kim sat quietly taking notes on her tablet. She wore simple civilian clothes and had not spoken to anyone since arriving. Most delegates assumed she was a junior academic observer. Her fingers moved steadily across the screen as she recorded every detail of the presentation and the reactions it generated. Jin Ho showed more tactical scenarios. Human soldiers using improvised explosives to breach fortified positions. Teams coordinating complex multi-vector assaults without sophisticated communication equipment. Individual fighters adapting their strategies based on enemy responses in real time. These techniques may seem basic, Jin Ho admitted, but they have proven highly effective in simulation and limited field applications. Simulation, General Tal Nex said dismissively. Any species can create impressive simulations. Real warfare requires proven doctrines developed through centuries of actual combat experience. Voss stood up, his 4 arms gesturing dramatically. Commander Jin Ho, I appreciate Earth's enthusiasm for contributing to galactic security. However, your species lacks the combat experience necessary to develop effective military doctrine. Our energy weapons can destroy entire city blocks in seconds. Our orbital platforms can render planets uninhabitable. What possible use are these? Primitive close combat techniques? The Admiral's words carried weight. The Valorian military had never lost a major engagement. Their technology was among the most advanced in the galaxy. When Voss spoke about warfare, other species listened. Furthermore, Voss continued, your emphasis on individual adaptation seems inefficient. Proper military doctrine relies on standardized procedures and overwhelming force projection. These guerrilla tactics you describe might work against disorganized criminals, but they would be useless against a disciplined military force. Jinho felt the mood in the room shift against him. He had expected skepticism, but the level of dismissal was greater than anticipated. Admiral Voss, I understand your concerns. However, our analysis suggests that flexibility and adaptation can overcome technological superiority in certain circumstances. Analysis based on what data? Voss demanded. Earth has been part of the galactic community for 5 years. Your military has never faced a real enemy. How can you possibly understand the complexities of galactic warfare? Dr. Hana Kim looked up from her tablet for the first time. Her expression remained neutral, but her typing became more rapid and deliberate. Jinho activated another hologram showing detailed tactical formations. Our doctrine was developed with input from specialists who have studied various combat scenarios extensively. We believe that adaptability and resourcefulness can compensate for technological disadvantages. Studied scenarios, Voss scoffed. Academic exercises and theoretical models. Delegate Jinho, real combat is nothing like your simulations. When faced with actual enemies using real weapons, your primitive tactics would result in massive casualties and certain defeat. The presentation continued for another 20 minutes. Jinho showed supply chain disruption techniques, psychological warfare applications, and methods for operating in hostile territory with minimal support. Each new tactical concept was met with increasing skepticism from the alien delegates. When Jinho finished, the applause was polite but unenthusiastic. Most delegates were already gathering their materials to leave. The consensus was clear. Earth's military doctrine was interesting from an anthropological perspective, but useless for actual combat applications. Admiral Voss approached Jinho as delegates filed out of the hall. Commander, I hope you will not take offense at my directness. Your species shows promise. But you must learn from civilizations with real military experience before venturing into galactic warfare. Jinho nodded respectfully. I appreciate your feedback, Admiral. Study our tactical manuals, Voss continued. Learn proper fleet formations and energy weapon deployment. Abandon these primitive ground combat ideas. They will only get your soldiers killed when you face real enemies. As Voss walked away, Jinho noticed Dr. Hana Kim still typing on her tablet. Her fingers moved with mechanical precision, adding line after line of text. She seemed completely absorbed in her work, unaffected by the dismissive reception of the presentation. Jinho packed up his materials, wondering if Earth's military leaders had made a mistake in developing their new doctrine. The galaxy's most experienced warriors had spoken clearly. Human tactics were primitive and ineffective. In the back of the emptying hall, Dr. Hana Kim continued typing. Her expression remained calm and focused as she made detailed notes about everything she had observed. The dismissive comments, the technological assumptions, the tactical blind spots. All of it went into her growing database of information about galactic military thinking. She saved her work and closed the tablet. Tomorrow the real test would begin. 3 months after the military symposium, Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of his flagship watching disaster unfold across multiple star systems. Red warning lights flashed on every tactical display. Colony after colony reported the same message. The Hegemony Coalition had launched coordinated surprise attacks across the Outer Rim territories. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, we have confirmed hostile forces on Kepler 186, New Geneva, and Titan's Rest. All 3 colonies are reporting ground combat in urban areas. Voss studied the tactical displays with growing concern. The Hegemony Coalition was an alliance of militant species that had been quiet for decades. Their sudden return to aggressive action caught everyone by surprise. What worried Voss more was their new strategy. "Sir, the enemy is not following standard invasion protocols," the tactical officer continued. "Instead of orbital bombardment, followed by occupation, they are conducting direct planetary assault with immediate entrenchment in civilian areas." This was completely different from traditional galactic warfare. For thousands of years, military conflicts followed predictable patterns. Fleets engaged in space, winners bombarded planets from orbit, survivors surrendered or evacuated. The hegemony had changed the rules. "They are using the civilian populations as shields," Voss realized. "We cannot use orbital strikes without massive collateral damage." On the main screen, reports flowed in from the besieged colonies. Hegemony forces had landed in the heart of major cities. They moved in small groups through urban environments. They avoided open areas where they could be targeted from space. Their tactics were designed to make traditional galactic military responses impossible. General Tal next contacted Voss from his command ship. "Admiral, this is unlike any hegemony strategy we have seen before. Our intelligence suggests they captured human military manuals to develop these tactics." Voss felt a cold chill run through him. 3 months ago he had dismissed human military doctrine as primitive and useless. Now the enemy was using similar tactics to devastating effect against his own forces. "How effective are your ground forces against this type of urban combat?" Voss asked. "We are struggling," Talnex admitted. "Our soldiers are trained for conventional warfare. Open battlefields, clear targets. These close quarters engagements in civilian areas are proving difficult." The reports got worse by the hour. Hegemony forces had captured key infrastructure on multiple worlds. They held power plants, water treatment facilities, and communication centers. All of these targets were surrounded by civilian buildings. Any attempt to retake them would result in massive civilian casualties. Voss watched his tactical displays with growing frustration. His fleets commanded space around the attacked colonies. His ships carried weapons that could level mountains. But none of that mattered when the enemy hid among non-combatants in dense urban areas. "Admiral," his communication officer announced, "urgent message from Valorian High Command." The holographic image of Fleet Marshal Kren Vox appeared before Voss. The senior officer looked grim. "Admiral Voss, the hegemony attacks have expanded to 12 colonies. Our conventional forces are ineffective against their urban warfare tactics. High Command is authorizing you to request assistance from any available allies." Voss nodded. "Understood, Marshal. What forces are available?" "The Earth Defense Force has offered tactical support. They claim experience with this type of combat." Scenario. 3 months ago, Voss would have laughed at such a suggestion. Now facing an enemy that had adopted human-style tactics, he swallowed his pride. "Contact Earth Defense Force immediately. Request all available assistance." 2 days later, the EDF task force arrived at the rendezvous point. Voss studied the human ships on his tactical display. They were smaller than Valorian vessels and used different design principles. The flagship was designated EDF Incheon under the command of Captain Day-Wan. "Admiral Voss," Captain Day-Wan appeared on the communication screen. "Earth Defense Force. Reporting as requested. We have brought tactical specialists familiar with urban combat scenarios. Captain, we need immediate assistance. The hegemony has adopted guerrilla warfare tactics that our forces cannot counter effectively." "Understood, Admiral. We are transmitting our tactical assessment team to your ship now." A shuttle launched from the Incheon carrying the human specialists. Voss waited in the main conference room with his senior staff. When the humans entered, he was surprised to see Dr. Hana Kim among them. She wore a simple military uniform and carried the same tablet she had used at the symposium. Commander Jin Ho led the team. "Admiral Voss, thank you for requesting our assistance. Dr. Kim has prepared a tactical analysis of the current situation." Voss looked at the quiet woman with new interest. "Dr. Kim, I remember you from the symposium. You are a military academic, correct?" "I consult on tactical doctrine development," Hana replied simply. She activated her tablet and connected it to the conference room displays. I have reviewed the combat reports from all affected colonies. Detailed tactical maps appeared showing hegemony positions on each world. Hana had marked specific locations with different colored indicators. Supply routes, command centers, vulnerable positions, and civilian evacuation corridors were all clearly labeled. The hegemony strategy is effective but has several exploitable weaknesses, Hana began. Their urban positioning limits their mobility. Their use of civilian shields restricts their fields of fire. Their command structure relies on maintaining communication through compromised infrastructure. Voss studied the displays with growing amazement. The level of detail was extraordinary. Hana had identified tactical vulnerabilities that his own analysts had missed completely. How did you compile this analysis so quickly? Voss asked. I cross-referenced the combat reports with standard urban warfare patterns, Hana replied. The hegemony may have adopted human tactics, but they are implementing them incorrectly. She highlighted specific areas on the tactical maps. They are concentrating forces in defensible positions rather than maintaining mobility. They are holding territory instead of disrupting enemy operations. These modifications make them predictable. Captain Dae-Won nodded. Dr. Kim has developed counter-tactics specifically designed to exploit these implementation errors. Hana continued her presentation. I recommend simultaneous multi-vector insertion using stealth dropships. Target these 17 specific weak points in their defensive network. Coordinate the attacks to occur within a 4-minute window to prevent coordinated response. The tactical plan was incredibly detailed. Hana had identified optimal approach routes, equipment requirements, and contingency procedures for multiple failure scenarios. She outlined backup plans for situations that Voss had not even considered. Dr. Kim, Voss said slowly, this level of tactical planning usually requires months of preparation and extensive field reconnaissance. How did you develop such detailed counter-strategies so quickly? Hana looked up from her tablet. Her expression remained calm and professional. I consulted primary sources for similar tactical scenarios. What primary sources? Combat reports and after-action analyses from comparable urban warfare situations. Voss felt something was not quite right about her answers, but the tactical plan was sound. Better than sound. It was brilliant in ways that his most experienced officers had not achieved. Lieutenant Mira Park, the Human Weapons Systems officer, whispered something to Captain Dae-Won. Voss caught only fragments. Reads like after-action reports, and too specific for theoretical analysis. Dr. Kim, Voss said, these contingency plans are remarkably detailed. They account for variables that our best simulations did not predict. Real combat situations tend to be more complex than simulations, Hana replied. Effective tactical planning must account for human factors, equipment failures, and environmental variables that computer models often miss. She pulled up another display showing psychological warfare applications. The hegemony forces will respond predictably to specific types of pressure. Disrupting their communication at these precise moments will trigger predetermined fallback procedures. They will withdraw to secondary positions exactly as indicated on these maps. Voss stared at the tactical projections. Everything was laid out with surgical precision. Not just what to attack, but when, how, and what the enemy response would be. It was as if Hana had fought this exact battle before. Dr. Kim, how can you be so certain of enemy response patterns? Hana saved her work and looked directly at Voss. Primary sources are always more reliable than theoretical models, Admiral. The meeting ended with approval for Hana's tactical plan. As the humans prepared to return to their ship, Voss found himself wondering about Dr. Kim's mysterious primary sources. Her tactical knowledge seemed too detailed, too specific, too personal for academic research. But with 12 colonies under attack, there was no time for questions. The counteroffensive would begin in 18 hours. The joint human-Valorian fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442b system. Admiral Voss stood on his bridge, studying the tactical displays. The colony world appeared as a blue-green sphere surrounded by enemy ships. Hegemony forces had established orbital control and landed ground troops in the main population centers. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, Long-range scans show heavy hegemony fortification around New Seoul City. They control the spaceport, power grid, and government complex. Civilian populations are trapped in residential areas. Captain Dae-won appeared on the communication screen from the EDF Incheon. Admiral Voss, we are ready to begin the assault. Dr. Kim has completed her tactical analysis. Voss nodded. Transmit your battle plan, Captain. The holographic display showed the colony world with detailed tactical overlays. Voss studied the proposed assault strategy with his senior staff. According to standard Valorian doctrine, the correct approach was obvious. Destroy the enemy orbital assets, then conduct precision strikes against military targets. Captain Dae-won, Voss said, I recommend we begin with coordinated orbital bombardment of enemy positions. My heavy cruisers can neutralize their ground forces within 6 hours. That approach will result in massive civilian casualties, Dr. Hana Kim said, joining the communication link. The hegemony has positioned their forces specifically to make orbital strikes impossible. Voss looked at the tactical display again. She was correct. Enemy positions were integrated throughout the civilian areas. Any orbital strike would kill thousands of non-combatants. Then we conduct a standard mechanized assault, Voss decided. Land our forces at the spaceport and advance through the city with armored support. Hana shook her head. The hegemony expects that approach. They have prepared killing zones at every major intersection. Your forces will be channeled into prepared ambush sites. She activated her tablet and transmitted new tactical data. I recommend simultaneous multi-vector insertion using stealth. Dropships. Hit 17 specific targets within a 4-minute window. The plan appeared on Voss's display. It was incredibly complex. Human and Valorian forces would land at precise coordinates throughout the city. Each team had specific objectives and strict timing requirements. The level of coordination required seemed impossible to achieve. Dr. Kim, Voss said slowly, this plan requires knowing exact enemy positions, response times, and fallback procedures. How can you be certain of these details? Combat analysis based on established patterns, Hana replied. The hegemony follows predictable tactical doctrines. Voss studied the insertion points more carefully. Each landing zone was marked with detailed information about local terrain, building layouts, and optimal approach routes. The intelligence was far too specific for satellite reconnaissance. Lieutenant Mira Park leaned toward Captain Dae-won and whispered something. Voss caught fragments of her words. Knows the street layouts, and like she has been there before. Dr. Kim, Voss pressed. These tactical modifications are remarkably detailed. You have contingencies for 17 different failure scenarios. How did you develop such comprehensive planning? Hana looked directly at him through the communication screen. Experience teaches what simulations cannot, Admiral. The assault began exactly as planned. Stealth dropships launched from both fleets, carrying mixed human Valorian teams. Voss watched the tactical display as dozens of small craft approached the planet's surface. Each ship followed precise approach vectors that Hana had calculated to avoid enemy detection. The first landing occurred at 0300 local time. Team Alpha inserted near the power station exactly where Hana had predicted the weakest point in enemy defenses. Team Beta landed behind the government complex using an approach route that somehow avoided all hegemony sensor positions. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, all teams have achieved successful insertion. No enemy contact during landing phase. Voss was impressed despite his skepticism. Hana's intelligence had been completely accurate. Every enemy sensor position, every patrol route, every defensive blind spot had been exactly where she said it would be. The urban combat began 15 minutes later. Team Charlie engaged hegemony forces at the spaceport control tower. The enemy responded exactly as Hana had predicted. They established defensive positions in predetermined locations and called for reinforcements from specified reserve units. Team Charlie reports enemy fallback to secondary positions. The communication officer announced. Hegemony forces are withdrawing along Route 7 toward the industrial district. Voss checked Hana's tactical projections. She had predicted this exact withdrawal pattern. Her plan showed Teams Delta and Echo positioned to intercept the retreating forces at precisely the right locations. How did she know they would retreat along that specific route? Voss asked his tactical officer. Unknown, sir. But her predictions have been accurate in every detail so far. The battle continued for 6 hours. Every hegemony response followed Hana's projections. When Team Gamma breached the communication center, enemy forces established fallback positions in the exact buildings she had marked. When the power station was captured, hegemony commanders ordered withdrawals using the communication codes she had anticipated. During the assault on the government complex, Voss watched Hana coordinate the attack through her communication link. She guided the teams through building layouts with perfect knowledge of room configurations, stairwell positions, and structural weak points. Team Fox breached the 3rd floor from the east corridor. Hana instructed. The enemy will have 2 guards at the elevator bank and a heavy weapons position covering the main hallway. Use explosive charges on the conference room wall to access the command center. Her instructions were followed precisely. The guards were exactly where she said. The heavy weapons position was in the predicted location. The conference room wall provided perfect access to the enemy command center. Dr. Kim, Captain Dae-won asked over the communication channel. How do you know the interior layout of that building so well? Architectural analysis based on standard colonial construction patterns, Hana replied without hesitation. But Voss noticed something in her voice. A slight tension when she answered questions about her knowledge. Her responses were technically accurate but seemed to avoid deeper explanations. Lieutenant Mira Park was monitoring enemy communications. Admiral, the hegemony commanders are requesting immediate evacuation. They are reporting unexpected tactical failures and requesting orbital support. Their orbital assets are neutralized, Voss confirmed. Continue the assault. The final phase began at dawn. Hegemony ground forces attempted to establish a defensive perimeter around their landing ships. Once again, they moved exactly as Hana had predicted. They chose defensive positions that appeared strong but had critical vulnerabilities she had identified. Teams Alpha through Hotel. Begin final assault, Hana coordinated. Enemy forces will attempt to establish crossfire from buildings 12 and 15. Use smoke deployment at these coordinates to block their sightlines. They will relocate to the parking structure within 8 minutes. Voss watched the tactical display in amazement. The enemy relocated exactly as predicted. They used the exact timing Hana had specified. They chose new positions that she had already marked as secondary targets. Admiral, his tactical officer reported. Hegemony ground forces are surrendering. The colony is secure. The battle had lasted 12 hours. Casualties were minimal on both sides. Civilian damage was restricted to specific areas that Hana had marked as acceptable losses. The victory was complete and precise. As the joint forces secured the colony, Voss found himself studying Hana's tactical performance. Every prediction had been accurate. Every contingency had been necessary. Every detail had been correct. Dr. Kim, Voss said during the post-battle conference, your tactical analysis was remarkably precise. These results suggest intimate knowledge of hegemony doctrine and capabilities. Hana closed her tablet and looked at him calmly. Thorough research produces reliable results, Admiral. But Voss was beginning to suspect that Dr. Kim's research was far more thorough than she was willing to admit. Admiral Voss could not sleep. 3 days had passed since the liberation of Kepler 442b, and something about Dr. Hana Kim's tactical performance troubled him deeply. He sat in his private quarters reviewing her battle plans on his personal display. The more he studied her work, the more disturbed he became. Her tactical annotations contained details that no academic study could provide. She knew exactly how long it took for hegemony soldiers to respond to different types of attacks. She predicted their communication procedures with perfect accuracy. Most disturbing of all, she seemed to understand their psychological breaking points with clinical precision. Voss pulled up her notes about enemy equipment failures. Hegemony energy rifles overheat after 47 continuous shots in standard atmospheric conditions. Cooling systems require 93 seconds for full reset. During this period, affected soldiers will attempt to switch to backup weapons. stored in left thigh compartments. How could she know such specific technical details? Hegemony equipment specifications were classified military secrets. Even Valorian intelligence had limited information about enemy weapon systems. He scrolled through more of her annotations. Hegemony squad leaders carry communication devices that emit a distinct high-pitched whine when receiving encrypted transmissions. This sound can be heard from approximately 12 meters in quiet environments. Eliminating the squad leader immediately after hearing this signal prevents coordination with other units for an average of 4 minutes. Voss had 40 years of military experience. He had fought in 17 major conflicts. He had never seen tactical intelligence this detailed and specific. The level of intimate knowledge suggested something far beyond academic research. A communication alert interrupted his thoughts. Captain Day Wan appeared on his personal screen. Admiral Voss, we have received new orders from Valorian High Command. The hegemony has attacked 3 more colonies. We are requested to provide immediate assistance. Understood, Captain. Prepare the fleet for departure. Sir, there is additional intelligence. The hegemony forces at these new targets are using modified tactics. They appear to have learned from their defeat at Kepler 442b. This was concerning. Military forces that adapted quickly were far more dangerous than predictable enemies. Voss needed to understand how extensively the hegemony had modified their approach. Captain, request that Dr. Kim provide tactical analysis of the new enemy deployments. Already completed, Admiral. She began working on the new scenarios as soon as we received the initial reports. Of course she had. Dr. Kim seemed to anticipate tactical developments before they occurred. Her ability to predict enemy behavior was becoming almost supernatural in its accuracy. 2 hours later, Voss met with the joint tactical team aboard the Incheon. Dr. Kim had prepared detailed analyses of all 3 new battle zones. Her intelligence was as comprehensive as always, but something had changed in her presentation style. The hegemony has modified their urban warfare doctrine based on their losses at Kepler 442b, Hanna began. They are now positioning reserves in underground facilities rather than surface buildings. They have also changed their communication protocols to prevent interception. She activated new tactical displays showing enemy positions on each targeted world. The intelligence was impossibly detailed. She knew exact tunnel layouts, ventilation systems, and structural weak points of underground facilities she should never have seen. Dr. Kim, Voss interrupted. How did you obtain architectural plans for underground installations on these colony worlds? Standard colonial construction uses predictable design patterns, Hanna replied. Underground facilities follow engineering requirements that limit possible configurations. The answer was technically plausible but felt incomplete. Voss studied her tactical projections more carefully. She had marked specific rooms within the underground complexes. Command centers, equipment storage areas, and escape routes were all clearly labeled. Lieutenant Mira Park raised her hand. Dr. Kim, these tunnel systems show evidence of recent modifications. How can you identify changes made after original construction? Hanna paused for just a moment before answering. Structural analysis can reveal inconsistencies in construction, materials, and techniques. But Voss caught that brief hesitation. For the first time, Dr. Kim had seemed uncertain about her response. Her usual confident delivery had wavered slightly. Furthermore, Hanna continued, the hegemony has begun using different psychological warfare techniques. They are broadcasting propaganda messages designed to demoralize civilian populations. The content suggests they have studied human psychological profiles extensively. She played audio recordings of enemy broadcasts. The messages were in perfect galactic standard, but contained subtle linguistic patterns that seemed specifically designed to create fear and hopelessness. How did you analyze these psychological warfare techniques so quickly? Captain Day Wan asked. I have experience with similar propaganda methods, Hanna said simply. Again, Voss noticed something in her tone, a slight tension when discussing her sources of knowledge. Her explanations were always technically accurate but seemed carefully constructed to avoid revealing too much information. The tactical briefing continued for 2 hours. Hana outlined assault plans for all 3 colony worlds. Her strategies accounted for the modified hegemony tactics and included contingencies for further enemy adaptations. The level of detail was overwhelming. After the meeting, Voss requested a private conversation with Captain Daewon. They met in the Inchin's secure conference room away from other personnel. "Captain, I need to ask you about Dr. Kim's background." Daewon seemed to expect the question. "What specifically would you like to know, Admiral?" "Her tactical knowledge is remarkably detailed, far beyond what academic research could provide. Where did she obtain such intimate understanding of hegemony military doctrine?" The human captain was quiet for a long moment. "Dr. Kim joined the Earth Defense Force 3 years ago after returning from a research expedition in the outer colonies." "What type of research expedition?" "Xenoarchaeology. She was studying ancient ruins on worlds near the Frontier Nebula." Daewon paused. "The expedition was supposed to last 6 months. Dr. Kim was missing for over 2 years before she returned." Voss felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Missing for 2 years? What happened during that time?" "The official report states that her research vessel experienced mechanical failures and was stranded on a remote world. She survived alone until a rescue mission located her." "And her current tactical expertise?" Daewon looked directly at Voss. After her return, Dr. Kim submitted detailed reports about defensive strategies she had observed on various frontier worlds. Her analysis was so comprehensive that Earth Defense Force recruited her to help develop new military doctrine. The pieces were beginning to form a disturbing picture. A missing researcher who returned with intimate knowledge of military tactics, detailed understanding of enemy equipment and procedures, psychological insights that suggested direct experience with hegemony forces. "Captain, has anyone questioned the circumstances of Dr. Kim's survival during those 2 missing years?" "The rescue team found her in excellent health despite the reported isolation. She had constructed sophisticated shelter systems and demonstrated remarkable survival skills." Daewon hesitated. There were some inconsistencies in her initial reports, but she was classified as a valuable intelligence asset rather than subjected to extensive debriefing. Voss understood the implication. Earth Defense Force had been more interested in utilizing Dr. Kim's knowledge than investigating how she had acquired it. "One more question, Captain. Have you noticed anything unusual about Dr. Kim's behavior during combat operations?" Daewon nodded slowly. "She provides tactical guidance with absolute certainty. No hesitation, no uncertainty about enemy responses. It is as if she has fought these exact battles before." That evening, Voss reviewed all available records about Dr. Kim's missing years. The official reports were detailed but somehow unsatisfying. They described equipment failures, survival techniques, and eventual rescue, but they did not explain how a xenoarchaeologist had become one of the galaxy's most effective tactical analysts. As he studied her tactical annotations again, Voss began to notice a pattern. Her knowledge was not theoretical or analytical. It was experiential. She knew how hegemony soldiers behaved because she had observed them directly. She understood their equipment limitations because she had seen their weapons fail in combat. She predicted their psychological responses because she had witnessed their reactions to specific types of pressure. Dr. Hana Kim was not consulting academic sources about military tactics. She was the primary source. And that realization suggested a story far more complex and disturbing than her official reports indicated. The next morning brought new orders. Intelligence reports suggested that hegemony forces were planning a major offensive against core colony worlds. Earth Defense Force and Valorian fleets would need to coordinate their largest joint operation to date. Dr. Kim had already begun working on tactical plans for the expanded conflict. As always, her analysis would be detailed, accurate, and based on knowledge that she claimed came from research but that Voss increasingly suspected came from sources she was not willing to discuss. Admiral Voss found Dr. Hana Kim alone in the observation deck of the EDF Incheon. She stood before the large viewport watching the stars drift past as the fleet traveled through hyperspace. Her tablet lay beside her, displaying tactical projections for their next engagement. Even during moments of apparent rest, she continued working. "Dr. Kim," Voss said as he entered the quiet compartment, "I need to speak with you." She turned to face him but said nothing. Her expression remained calm and professional as always. In the 3 weeks since their first meeting, Voss had never seen her display strong emotion or lose her composed demeanor. "I have been studying your tactical analyses," Voss continued. "Your knowledge of hegemony military doctrine is remarkably detailed, more detailed than our best intelligence services have managed to compile in decades of conflict." "Thorough research produces comprehensive results," Hanna replied, giving her standard explanation. "No," Voss said firmly. "Research does not produce the type of intimate knowledge you possess. You know exactly how hegemony soldiers react under specific combat stress. You understand their equipment maintenance schedules. You can predict their communication procedures with perfect accuracy." Hanna remained silent, waiting for him to continue. "Furthermore, your tactical modifications read like after-action reports rather than theoretical projections. You know precisely how long it takes for different types of injuries to disable enemy combatants. You understand the psychological impact of specific interrogation techniques. This is not academic knowledge, Dr. Kim." Voss stepped closer to the viewport and looked directly at her. "I believe you obtained your tactical expertise through direct experience with hegemony forces. I want to know what happened during the 2 years you were listed as missing." For a long moment, Hanna said nothing. She looked out at the stars streaming past in hyperspace, her reflection visible in the transparent metal. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet but steady. "What would you like to know, Admiral?" "The truth about your missing years. The real explanation for your tactical knowledge. The source of your intelligence about hegemony military operations." Hanna picked up her tablet and closed the tactical displays. 3 years ago, I was part of a xenoarchaeological expedition studying ruins near the Frontier Nebula. Our research vessel was captured by hegemony raiders while conducting surveys in contested space. She spoke without emotion, as if describing events that had happened to someone else. "The hegemony does not take prisoners for exchange or ransom. Captured personnel become forced labor in their industrial facilities. I spent 18 months in work camps on 3 different worlds." Voss felt his breath catch. Hegemony labor camps were notorious for their brutality. Few prisoners survived, more than a few months under the harsh conditions and deliberate mistreatment. "During my imprisonment, I observed everything," Hanna continued. "Guard rotations, weapon maintenance procedures, communication protocols, command structures. I studied my captors the way I had once studied ancient ruins. Systematically, thoroughly, and with complete attention to detail." She turned away from the viewport to face Voss directly. Survival required understanding how they thought, how they organized their forces, and how they responded to different types of pressure. Every weakness in their tactical doctrine was a potential opportunity for escape. "You escaped from hegemony labor camps?" Voss asked with amazement. 14 times, Hanna replied matter-of-factly. 6 attempts failed and resulted in recapture. Each failure provided additional intelligence about their security procedures and pursuit tactics. The other 8 attempts succeeded in temporary liberation of camp facilities. Voss stared at her in shock. Escape from a single hegemony installation was considered nearly impossible. Multiple escapes suggested capabilities far beyond those of a civilian researcher. "The tactical knowledge in your battle plans," he said slowly. "It comes from your own combat experience against hegemony forces." Hanna nodded. "Every modification I make to standard military doctrine reflects lessons learned through direct engagement with enemy personnel. My understanding of their psychological vulnerabilities comes from interrogating captured guards during escape operations. My knowledge of equipment limitations comes from stealing and analyzing their weapons." She activated her tablet and showed him detailed technical schematics. "Hegemony energy rifles have a design flaw in their cooling systems. The problem becomes critical after 47 consecutive shots, because I counted every shot fired during combat engagements. Their squad leaders carry communication devices that emit distinctive sounds because I listened to those sounds while hiding from patrol units." The precision of her knowledge suddenly made complete sense. Every tactical detail came from personal observation under the most desperate circumstances imaginable. Dr. Kim, how did you finally escape permanently? I did not escape alone, Hana said. During my final imprisonment on Kepler 739c, I organized a coordinated revolt involving over 300 prisoners from 12 different species. We liberated the entire facility and captured enough hegemony equipment to arm a small military force. Voss tried to comprehend the implications. A civilian researcher had organized and led a successful military operation against one of the galaxy's most brutal occupation forces. The liberated prisoners fought alongside me for 4 months while we established a hidden base in the planet's mountainous regions. We conducted guerrilla operations against hegemony installations until Earth Defense Force rescue ships arrived in response to our distress signals. 4 months of guerrilla warfare, Voss repeated. You commanded military operations against active hegemony forces. I learned their tactics by surviving them, Hana said simply. I developed counter-strategies by testing them in actual combat. Every tactical principle in Earth's current military doctrine was proven effective against real enemies using real weapons. Voss understood now why her battle plans were so precise. She had not developed theoretical strategies based on academic study. She had personally fought the wars that her tactical manuals described. The other prisoners who fought with you, he asked, what happened to them? Some chose to return to their home worlds after rescue. Others volunteered to join Earth Defense Force as military advisors. We all learned that survival against overwhelming odds requires tactics that more advanced civilizations consider primitive or brutal. She pulled up another display showing comparative casualty statistics. Human military doctrine emphasizes adaptation, improvisation, and psychological warfare because those techniques are effective against technologically superior enemies. We developed them out of necessity, not choice. Dr. Kim, why have you never revealed the true source of your tactical knowledge? Hana was quiet for several moments before answering. Military leaders respect academic credentials and theoretical expertise. They are less comfortable with knowledge gained through imprisonment, torture, and desperate survival. It is easier to present tactical solutions as research rather than as personal experience. Voss realized she was correct. He had initially dismissed human military doctrine because it seemed too primitive for advanced civilizations. Learning that those tactics had been developed by prisoners fighting for survival would not have made them more acceptable to galactic military leaders. Furthermore, Hana continued, the specific details of my imprisonment are not relevant to current tactical applications. What matters is that the strategies work against hegemony forces, regardless of how I learned to develop them. She closed her tablet and looked back toward the viewport. Admiral, you now understand the source of my tactical knowledge. Do you believe this information changes the effectiveness of our current battle plans? Voss considered her question carefully. Her personal history was shocking and disturbing, but it did not alter the proven success of her tactical strategies. If anything, knowing that her plans came from actual combat experience made him more confident in their reliability. No, Dr. Kim. Your tactical expertise remains valuable regardless of how it was acquired. Then I suggest we focus on the upcoming engagement rather than dwelling on past experiences that cannot be changed. As Voss prepared to leave the observation deck, he found himself looking at Dr. Hana Kim with completely different eyes. She was not a military academic who had developed interesting theories about combat tactics. She was a combat veteran who had survived horrors that would have broken most trained soldiers. Her calm professional demeanor was not academic detachment. It was the controlled composure of someone who had learned to function effectively under the most extreme stress imaginable. Dr. Kim, he said before departing, thank you for your honesty about your background. She nodded but did not turn away from the viewport. Admiral, there is one more thing you should understand about my tactical knowledge. What is that? Every strategy I develop, every modification I make to battle plans, every contingency I prepare for hostile engagement is designed with one primary objective. I will never be captured by hegemony forces again, and neither will any of the personnel under my tactical guidance. Her voice remained calm and professional, but Voss heard something else underneath. A quiet intensity that spoke of absolute determination forged through unimaginable hardship. 6 months after the revelation about Dr. Hana Kim's background, Admiral Voss stood before the same galactic military symposium where he had once dismissed human military doctrine. The conference hall on Nexus 7 was filled with representatives from dozens of species, but the atmosphere had changed completely from the previous gathering. "Honored delegates," Voss began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation devices, "I am here to formally retract my previous statements regarding Earth's military capabilities and to request expanded cooperation with human tactical specialists." The audience listened with respectful attention rather than the amused skepticism that had greeted Commander Jin Ho months earlier. Recent victories against hegemony forces had proven the effectiveness of human-developed combat strategies, beyond any reasonable doubt. In the past 6 months, joint human-alien military operations have successfully liberated 17 colony worlds from hegemony occupation, Voss continued. These victories were achieved with minimal casualties and collateral damage using tactical doctrines developed by Earth Defense Force specialists. Dr. Hana Kim sat in the front row wearing her Earth Defense Force uniform. She had been promoted to Director of Galactic Counterinsurgency Operations and was now responsible for training military personnel from 12 different species. Her quiet presence commanded more respect than the loudest speeches. Furthermore, Voss said, "I have personally observed human tactical specialists demonstrate capabilities that exceed our most optimistic projections. Their understanding of asymmetric warfare, urban combat, and psychological operations has revolutionized our approach to military conflicts." General Tal Nex, who had previously supported orbital bombardment as the solution to all military problems, stood to address the assembly. "Admiral Voss speaks correctly. My own forces have adopted human-developed tactics with remarkable success. What we previously dismissed as primitive methods are actually highly sophisticated approaches to complex combat scenarios." The general activated his holographic display to show recent battle statistics. Human tactical doctrine emphasizes adaptation, resource conservation, and minimizing civilian casualties. These principles have proven more effective than traditional overwhelming force approaches when dealing with entrenched insurgent forces. Representative Kayla Vex from the Centauri Collective raised her hand. "Admiral Voss, can you provide specific examples of how human tactics have improved military effectiveness?" "Certainly," Voss replied. "Human specialists trained our forces in close-quarters combat techniques that proved essential during the liberation of Kepler-186. Traditional energy weapons were ineffective in the underground tunnel systems, but human-developed kinetic weapons and explosive devices cleared the installations efficiently." He showed tactical footage from recent operations. Additionally, human psychological warfare techniques disrupted enemy communication and command structures without requiring massive firepower. These methods achieved strategic objectives while preserving infrastructure and civilian populations. Dr. Kim stood to address the assembly. "The training programs we have developed focus on 3 core principles. First, adaptability over standardization. Military personnel must be able to modify their tactics based on changing battlefield conditions. Second, resource efficiency over technological superiority. Effective tactics must work with available equipment rather than requiring specific, advanced systems. Third, intelligence gathering over brute force application. Understanding enemy psychology and capabilities is more valuable than possessing superior weapons." The alien delegates listened with careful attention. Many had initially been skeptical of learning from a species with limited galactic military experience, but recent results spoke for themselves. Dr. Kim asked Fleet Marshal Jen Kor of the Andromedan Defense Alliance, "How do you develop such detailed tactical knowledge of enemy forces? Your intelligence appears to exceed what our best reconnaissance systems can provide." Hana's expression remained calm and professional. "Effective tactical analysis requires understanding enemy perspectives rather than relying solely on external observation. Our training programs teach military personnel to think like their opponents, anticipate their responses, and identify vulnerabilities that technological analysis might miss." It was a diplomatically phrased version of the truth. Her knowledge came from direct experience as both prisoner and combatant. but the practical applications were what mattered to military leaders. Commander Jin Ho joined the presentation to discuss implementation details. Earth Defense Force has established training facilities on 15 worlds, where human instructors work with local military personnel to adapt our tactical principles to their specific needs and capabilities. The TU holographic display showed images of joint training exercises. Alien soldiers practiced human-developed urban warfare techniques, improvised weapon construction, and psychological operations. The diversity of species working together using Earth-originated tactics was remarkable. These training programs have produced measurable improvements in military effectiveness across all participating forces, Jinho continued. Average mission success rates have increased by 43%, while casualty rates have decreased by 31%. Captain Dae Wan presented data on equipment and supply efficiency. Human tactical doctrine emphasizes working with available resources rather than requiring specific advanced equipment. This approach has proven particularly valuable for smaller military forces with limited budgets or technological capabilities. Admiral Voss returned to the podium for his concluding remarks. 6 months ago, I made a serious error in judgment. I dismissed human military capabilities based on assumptions about technological advancement and combat experience. I have learned that effective military doctrine comes not from superior technology, but from hard-won practical knowledge and the ability to adapt under pressure. He looked directly at Dr. Kim as he continued. The human specialists working with our forces have demonstrated that survival experience and tactical innovation can overcome seemingly insurmountable technological disadvantages. Their contributions have fundamentally changed how we approach galactic military conflicts. The symposium concluded with formal requests from 27 different species for access to human military training programs. What had begun as dismissive skepticism had evolved into genuine respect and eagerness to learn. After the formal presentations ended, Admiral Voss found himself in conversation with Dr. Kim in the same corridor where he had once offered her condescending advice about learning from superior civilizations. Dr. Kim, I owe you a personal apology for my previous attitude toward human military capabilities. Hana nodded politely. Your initial skepticism was understandable, Admiral. Earth's military experience was limited compared to established galactic powers. But I failed to consider that military effectiveness comes from practical knowledge rather than theoretical advancement. Your tactical expertise demonstrates capabilities that our academic military institutions never developed. Different circumstances produce different types of learning, Hana replied. Galactic military academies teach strategy and technology. Human military doctrine developed under conditions where strategy and technology were insufficient for survival. Voss understood the implication. Human tactics had been forged in the crucible of desperate necessity, rather than developed through comfortable academic study. The harsh practical experience produced more effective results than traditional military education. Dr. Kim, what are your plans for expanding human military training programs? We are establishing the Galactic Counterinsurgency Academy on Terra Nova, she said. The facility will train military specialists from all allied species in advanced tactical techniques. Our instructors include personnel who have actual combat experience against various enemy forces. Voss realized she was talking about other survivors like herself. Humans who had learned military tactics through direct confrontation with hostile forces, rather than through simulation and theory. The Academy motto will be, "Experience is the ultimate teacher," Hana continued. Students will learn tactical principles that have been proven effective under actual combat conditions rather than theoretical scenarios. As they talked, other delegates approached to request information about accessing human military training. The change in attitude was complete and dramatic. Species that had previously considered humans to be primitive newcomers now competed for opportunities to learn from Earth's tactical specialists. Dr. Kim handled each request with the same calm professionalism she brought to military operations. She provided detailed information about training programs, admission requirements, and implementation schedules. Her responses were thorough and practical, focused on achieving results rather than impressive presentations. Later that evening, Admiral Voss filed his official report to Valorian High Command. His conclusions were clear and unambiguous. Human, military doctrine represented a fundamental advancement in galactic tactical thinking. Earth's specialists had developed capabilities that exceeded traditional military approaches through practical experience and adaptive innovation. Most importantly, he recommended that all Valorian military personnel receive training in human-developed tactics as standard prep.